Hi, everyone. Welcome to our new series, What If They Had a VA Pop Culture Edition. I'm Nicole Magelssen, founder and CEO of Alpine Virtual, where we have saved our clients over 100,000 hours with targeted virtual assistant support. And today we are going to dive into one of my favorite TV shows and imagine how a VA could have turned complete chaos into smooth operations, and if the relationship would even work. So our first stop is the Parks and Recreation Department in Pawnee, Indiana. If you have ever watched Leslie Knope frantically organizing 17 binders while Ron Swanson is hiding in his office and Tom is launching his latest side hustle, then you know that this department was so fun to watch, but it was a complete disaster. But what if they had virtual assistants? Would it have worked? Could virtual assistants have actually saved Pawnee's budget while making their parks legendary? I had to find out. So let's be honest, the Parks Department, they were a blast, but they were also bleeding money on distractions. Leslie would spend 3 hours color coding her Harvest Festival timeline while grant deadlines were just flying by. And April would perfect her death stare instead of answer the phones. And then don't even get me started on Andy's interpretive dance breaks during work hours. So here's where a VA could have helped support the company and save them money and change the game for them. Instead of paying for full-time salaries for, let's call it, creative productivity, they could have hired a focused virtual assistant support. So a VA could have tackled Leslie's grant research while she's passionately defending the Parks Department budget to a room full of really bored city council members. Think about it. Instead of paying for Jerry's daily donut run or Tom's elaborate productivity sessions for Rent-A-Swag, they're paying for focused work to get done. One of our clients, who is a small nonprofit, switched from a full-time in-person administrative assistant to a very focused virtual assistant who worked on 15 targeted hours per week. So they were able to cut about 35% and actually get more done because the VA wasn't getting pulled into office birthday parties and impromptu team building exercises. So for Pawnee, it could have meant thousands saved annually. Now, let's talk about Leslie's grant writing obsession. Remember how she would stay up until 3 a.m. researching funding opportunities and then show up the next day running on pure enthusiasm and waffles? A specialized VA could have handled that initial research, the database searches, and even drafted some preliminary proposals. This meant that Leslie could then focus on what she does best, which is rallying the community to being really actually passionate about Pawnee and about Pawnee Parks. So we have a community organization that had their virtual assistant secure 4 different grants in 8 months, which totaled in over $50,000. The VA spent about 10 hours per week on grant research and applications, while the executive director was able to focus on programs and community outreach. So for Pawnee, this could have meant finally getting that ice rink without Leslie having to sweet talk Councilman Jam. There is something else that could have really changed Pawnee, and that is social media management. The Parks Department at the time had 0 online presence, which is really actually insane if you think about it. They had Leslie Knope, who could make folding laundry sound like the most important civic duty, and they weren't using that energy online. A VA could have created a Pawnee Park Instagram or YouTube, which would showcase Leslie's waffle events, live tweeted Ron's woodworking demonstrations, and turned Tom's completely outrageous commentary into viral TikTok content. Imagine Andy's mousetrap performance becoming the soundtrack for park renovation videos. Or maybe they could create like time-lapse footage of the lot transformation with Leslie's motivational voiceovers. They had so much potential for great social content, and it was completely out the window. One of our retail clients had their VAs grow their social media following in 6 months just by consistently posting behind-the-scenes content and engaging with their community. So for Pawnee, this could have meant becoming a tourist destination instead of just Eagleton's weird other city. Event coordination is another area that a VA could have really helped, and Pawnee really needed the help. Leslie could plan amazing events, but she would nearly kill herself managing every tiny detail. Remember the Unity concert? Leslie was handling vendor contracts and sound equipment and catering and security and probably trying to hand paint welcome signs at 2 a.m. A VA could have managed vendor communications, tracked RSVPs, coordinated logistics, and even set up online ticket sales. This would have freed up Leslie to do what she did best, which is to inspire the people of Pawnee and to create this magical community moment. Instead, Leslie was collapsing from exhaustion after the event, and she could have actually enjoyed stepping back and watching the vision she worked so hard for come to life. We do a lot of event planning here at Alpine, and we help event planning companies where the VAs handle all of the pre-event logistics. So one of our clients went from 70-hour work weeks during these big event seasons to actually attending some of her own events as a guest sometimes. Their client satisfaction scores went up because the owner wasn't completely burnt out and during all of these big events. So next, let's talk about citizen services, another area where Pawnee was hemorrhaging efficiency. Let's talk about citizen complaints, another area where Pawnee was hemorrhaging efficiency. Do you remember all of those really bizarre citizen complaints? There was that guy who was convinced that possums were plotting against him, or maybe the woman who wanted to ban all non-Christian music from the gazebo. April would literally just throw complaint form into the trash, which was really funny, but probably not legal. A VA could have managed a proper complaint tracking system, drafted diplomatic responses in Leslie's signature enthusiastic tone, and even maybe identified patterns in citizen concerns that could actually have some park improvements. Instead of April's chaos management style, they could have had professional, timely responses that was actually helpful to the residents and helped them feel heard and like they were a part of a community. But here's what I think could have completely helped Pawnee in the most impactful way, and that is having someone who could translate Leslie's massive vision into some manageable action steps. Leslie would come up with the most fun and brilliant ideas, like turning a pit into a park, but then get completely overwhelmed by trying to manage every single aspect of this vision by herself. So she was a complete visionary, and a VA could have taken the big vision and broken it down into project timelines, researched similar successful projects in other cities, coordinated with contractors and city planners, and kept track of all of these different moving pieces. Leslie could have focused on community engagement and advocacy while knowing that someone competent was handling all of the logistics that she just didn't have the time to handle. The real magic would have been matching the right VA personally to Pawnee's very unique culture. So this couldn't be just anyone, obviously. It would need to be someone who would appreciate Leslie's intensity without getting overwhelmed, someone who could somehow find a way to communicate with Ron in his preferred minimal style, and someone who could keep up with Tom's rapid-fire entrepreneurial ideas without getting distracted while keeping it all on track. We always tell our clients that the best VA relationship happen when there's this good personality and work style match. So for Pawnee, they need someone with Leslie's work ethic, but also some strong boundaries and also organizational superpowers that could actually channel all of that energy productivity. Here is the bottom line. Pawnee Parks could have probably doubled their impact while cutting down their operational costs by, I estimate, about 25%. With the right virtual assistant support. So instead of a department that ran on caffeine, sugar, and waffles and Leslie's sheer willpower, they could have had sustainable systems that didn't require anyone to sacrifice their health or their sanity. The best part is that a VA could have helped them document and share their successes, turning Pawnee Parks, a small town oddity, into this model that other communities could learn from. Imagine Leslie's methods actually being studied and replicated instead of just being legendary office folklore. What's the takeaway for your business? Don't let your operations run on pure passion and overtime like Pawnee did. Identify the tasks that drain your energy but don't require your specific expertise, or tasks that could support your specific expertise, and consider how a VA could handle all of those so you can focus on the big picture stuff, the visionary work like Leslie did, the things that only you can do. So whether you're planning community events or you're running a retail business, there are probably a lot of administrative tasks and research projects and routine communications that could be handled more efficiently by someone who specializes in getting things done without getting distracted by office shenanigans. Thank you for joining me for the first episode of If They Had a VA Pop Culture Edition. What other TV shows do you think could have used some virtual assistant magic? Drop your suggestions below and I will do my best to cover them. And if you want to bring some of that Pawnee efficiency to your own business without the chaos, check out alpinevirtual.com, and I'll see you in the next episode where we will tackle another workplace disaster that VAs could have potentially prevented.